last week we came together, and what was revealed actually cut like a knife through the mysteries that have covered deep truths about our existence since the beginning of time. Now, the Emerald tablets, it's strange stuff, and it supposedly dates back 30,000 years and was translated from hieroglyphics. And I have them on our previous tapes, the number 688, 689. But basically, the story's about an alien force that comes in a UFO from another place in the universe, and they land on Earth to confront the hairy barbarians who are our ancestors. And when they get here, the hairy barbarians attack them with spears and clubs, and the aliens stop the barbarians with laser weapons or tasers, and they immobilize the attackers, But then something interesting happens. The aliens sit down with the barbarians, and they begin to talk to them of peace, and they identify themselves as messengers of the sun. Now, the other thing that we found was that the words of Thoth. Now, here's something that you want. Don't worry about these names. Thoth, it's just something somebody made up. I'm much more comfortable with the word alien. But anyhow, this Thoth, the words of Thoth, which is the Egyptian name for this guy. The Greek name is Hermes and whatever. But those words are very strangely similar to the words that Jesus used. So what we've done so far is we've been able to connect the landing of this ship, as the only way you could define it, and the Bible and other things of interest in this way. As we look at this, and you'll see first of all, we've got the universe and people coming from another dimension in that spaceship, and then you've got the hairy barbarians or the Neanderthals or whatever you want to call them, and then you got the guy with the ray gun, and then there's a connection too with Noah that we've been able to connect, and down the left-hand corner you see the Bible. We connected the tetrahedron with the photon, which you see next, and then the picture of Thoth, which we've connected with Jesus, and Pakal Votan as well. So, a lot of stuff. And then we focused on this Thoth, this symbol of this alien who came in this ship, and we found that he had a tetrahedron in his right hand, and in his left hand a pen that was for writing. And it opened to us an amazing revelation. And as you see it there, it's the Star Tetrahedron. Thoth the scribe used sacred geometry of the stars. See, what fascinated me so was that the tetrahedron, which Thoth is holding in his right hand, directly connected him to the work that we've been doing here for months, namely the connection between us and what we call God and spirits as photon. The other thing you want to keep in mind when you think about people 30,000 years ago or whatever, the people on the earth who were so primitive then would look at anyone who was advanced technologically as a god or as some kind of a spirit of some kind. Because, that if somebody comes along with a ray gun and you've got a club and a spear, that's God, see? But anyhow, we got this connection, and we'll share it again with you kind of quick, but this is what it said. Here we see the unified field theory is founded on a specific geometric array, and basically found out that everything boils down to a tetrahedron. Everything boils down to a tetrahedron, and that's what Thoth holds. The tetrahedron is the most basic shape to be found in the three-dimensional universe of volume, and the configuration of the Star Tetrahedron. Now, I haven't pursued this, which I will. The configuration of the Star Tetrahedron is formed within the first 8 cells of life. Okay? How many cells? Be formed within the first 8 cells of life and remains fixed at the base of the spine throughout one's life. Okay? The next one, Joan, the tetrahedron is ubiquitous throughout nature because the grid is the structure of the vacuum. Now, in the next line it says, and here's where we go to photon. Photon interaction with vacuum and its power allows us to find the structure of vacuum in space. I don't even know what the heck they're talking about. All I know is I see the tetrahedron and I see it interacts with photon, and photon is extremely important in the teachings that we've shared together. Space vacuum, as we shall understand, is a photon field as a source, virtual photons. Photon having frequency deforms its structure. So the only reason for that slide is to show the emphasis on photon. When we go to the next one, the minimal structure is tetrahedron. The unit of energy is tetrahedron. The minimum radiant energy is 1 photon. And then this last paragraph is probably sums it up. Physics discovers that the photon is the minimum radiation package. We identify the minimum tetrahedron photon. That to me is very, very exciting because this 30,000-year-old, whatever it was for outer space, who came in a ship, is portrayed holding this thing, which means he's holding photon, which is, as it says here, the speed of light, the tetrahedron edge of the photon. So that's what this is about, okay? What this is about is all of the months that I have spoken and we've shared together about photon being God, photon being Jesus, photon being us, and now we connect photon with tetrahedron. We connect photon with tetrahedron. And I've been sharing with you about the nature of that for months. So what is the importance of the tetrahedron photon in Thoth's hand? Okay, let's go to the next slide and let's see how important this is. In other words, Thoth, from the emerald tablets, holding that in his hand, okay, the tetrahedron is the most basic shape to be found in the three-dimensional universe of volume. Okay, the tetrahedron is the most basic shape to be found in the three-dimensional universe. So that is what's being held in the hand of Thoth. The next one says the minimum tetrahedron photon is the speed of light, the tetrahedron edge of the photon. This is why this is so very, very important. And the next one is the unit of energy is the tetrahedron. The minimum radiant is 1 photon. And then probably an extremely important connection, the star tetrahedron is formed within the first 8 cells of life and remains fixed at the base of the spine for one's life. So scientifically, we connect what Thoth is holding in his hand with photon, which we have found in previous studies is actually God. It's actually life. It's actually Jesus. It's actually us. And that's what's portrayed in his hand. So what do we have here? No matter how you change this, and as we showed graphically, this alien comes in a spaceship, uses laser weapons, and he's described as a scribe, somebody who writes things down and is taking notes or whatever. He's pictured with what they call an inkhorn or an ink container attached to his side. And we see it in this particular picture. And if you look at that picture, you see down hanging from his left side all the way down to about his left ankle what they call this inkhorn. Now this is very, very important, you know. Don't worry about the inkhorn. Just consider it that it is a way of identifying this alien figure. We've got a person who came in a UFO who is using laser weapons of some kind 30,000 years ago against prehistoric people. And he's identified with this inkhorn dangling from his left side. See, now the point is, and this is the point, be with me because you really get to, we have two very graphic descriptions in the Bible of aliens landing spaceships on Earth. Okay? Not only did they land, they got out of them and they're walking around. Okay? They get out of the spaceship and they're walking around. We have one description in the Emerald Tablet. We have another in the biblical Book of Ezekiel. And all I'm saying, when you don't have to believe that we're not here to, I'm not trying to prove anything. I'm just saying, hey, let's put together evidence. Let's take this like a puzzle and see if the pieces fit and what kind of interesting information we come up with. You know, all I say is, how in the world was anybody even considering things such as UFOs flying around 30,000 or 5,000 years ago? But not only in the Emerald Tablet, but in the Bible. Look here. In the Emerald Tablet, it says, I gathered my people and entered the great ship of the Master. Upward we rose. We would today say we lifted off into the morning. Dark beneath us lay the temple. So they're up in the air. Fast we fled towards the sun of the morning until beneath us lay the land of the children of Chem. That's Earth. So there's as good a description as you could get of getting into some kind of an aircraft, taking off, flying, and then seeing the earth below you. Then on the right side, we get in the book of Ezekiel. It says, the living creatures ran and returned as the appearance of a flash of lightning, and when the living creatures went, the wheels went by them, and when the living creatures were lifted up from the earth, the wheels were lifted up. I'll tell you something. If somebody was around 5,000 years ago and you saw something on the ground taking off, as far as you're concerned, that thing's alive. How else could it be? It's alive. And so here we have two descriptions. One very advanced, and the one on the right from the Bible still talking about something that flew. And you know what's other interesting? In both instances, both in the Emerald Tablet and in the Bible, the people who got out of these UFOs were carrying weapons. Not unlike Star Wars, not unlike Star Trek. Let's look at the Emerald and see what it said. It says, raging, they came with clubs and spears. That's our relatives, the Neanderthal. Lifted in anger, seeking to kill and destroy. Then I raised my staff and directed a ray of vibration, stopping them still as fragments of stone. You know? You could just see, can't you see it? Just like, you know, like Star Wars and all that. And they just, and, you know, they taser them nowadays. And go over in Ezekiel 9:2. What does it say? 6 men came from the way of the higher gate, which lies towards the north, and every man a weapon in his hand. On the left, they're shooting people with a taser or a laser, and on the right, the Bible describes they all had weapons in their hands. Okay. Now consider this, and let's because we're going to get deeper, and it's going to get more and more interesting. Consider this. The Bible is spoken of as the unerring Word of God. That's what I was always told. The Bible is the Word of God. It's unerring. Suppose the leader of the Emerald Tablet, who came to Earth in this UFO, is the same leader of the alien force spotted in the book of Ezekiel. Because in the book of Ezekiel, that alien force is described as the Lord, cherubims, glory of God, all of this stuff. In other words, the UFOs, the aliens in them, they land, they get out, and the description in the Bible is they're God, they're cherubims, they're the Lord. Okay? So now, who is this that we've been thinking of all of these years as God? Who are these people? And what is this? We would open up a tremendous tear in the curtain that has hidden us from the true identity of what we call God if the leader of the alien force turns out to be the same one that was leading the alien force in the biblical book of Ezekiel. Now, of course, the drawn picture of Thoth is it's a symbolic picture. You know, we've compared it in previous sessions because it has the cross, it has the single eye, and so forth. But there is a significant symbol that will allow us to identify the leader of the alien force both in the Emerald Tablet and in the Bible. Okay? Let us look. In the Emerald Tablet, it says, I am your writing palette, O Thoth, and I have brought to you your ink jar. In the Bible, in the book of Ezekiel, it says, one man among them was clothed with linen, with a writer's inkhorn by his side. Look at the picture. You sure it's a mythological, it's an Egyptian mythological picture, but look at it with the inkhorn by his side, and look at what it says in the book of Ezekiel in the Bible. So who the heck must it be? The indication is, the evidence is pointing to the fact that the same people or the same force that came in this fleet of UFOs to the earth and confronted the prehistoric beings were the same people who came to the earth and confronted Ezekiel. That's what the evidence is. So that's clear, at least as far as evidence. I mean, you know, if it's not, it shouldn't be in the Bible, but it is. He had an inkhorn by his side. That's Thoth. And it is there. And these people are referred to as God and cherubims. And if the Bible is the unerring word of God, then God is an alien who comes to this earth in a UFO. I'm not saying God is an alien who comes to the earth in UFO. What I am saying is, if the Bible is the unerring word of God, as we've been taught, and the Bible says that these people are gods and cherubims and all of this kind of business, then those people who are gods and cherubims and angels come in UFOs, because that's what Ezekiel described. You know what you might want to do? You might want to, there's a book out called The 12th Planet, and it's written by a guy named Zecharia Sitchin, in which he takes all of the information from ancient myths and so forth and arrives at the fact that it was people from another dimension who did arrive in UFOs and used very advanced technological information to adjust the DNA of then living barbarian people to improve the race and so forth and so on. It's not presented as fiction. And it's something you want to take a look at. So now, we have a deep connection between the Bible and the Emerald Tablet. What's the connection? Both of them have UFOs, both of them have aliens, and both of them say the leader of the alien force has an inkhorn hanging by his side. That's what we have, okay? But more than that, we've got a deep connection between the Emerald Tablet, the Bible, and Pakal Votan and December 21st, 2012. If indeed December 21st, 2012 was not given to us by some Mayan, group, but was given to us by an alien force who came to this planet in UFOs, then the entire matter takes on a much deeper meaning, doesn't it? UFOs in the Bible, UFOs in the Emerald Tablet, aliens get out, so forth and so on. Look at the writings of the Emerald Tablet and the reference to the city of Qum, as it was known in Egypt, and Hermopolis, as it was known in Greek after Hermes. And this, remember what we saw about the 8 cells before? Okay, let's look at this. Okay, John. Hermopolis, Greek, is the site of ancient Qum, located near modern Egyptian town of El Ashermain. The Egyptian name of the city means 8 town. After the Ogdad, a group of 8 deities who represented the world before creation. In Greek, the city was called Hermopolis after Hermes, who the Greeks identified with Thoth, because the city was the main cult center of Thoth, the god of magic, healing, wisdom, and the patron of scribes. So we have 8 cells that form from the tetrahedron of the body, and we have 8 town, don't we? You know, that's a piece of puzzle. Did you ever do a puzzle? You pick up but then you find a piece that fits. And if you find enough pieces that fit, what happens is you get a picture. That's right. 8 deities. But what I'm saying here is that the name of the town means 8 town. Hermopolis means 8 town. Qum means 8 town. Okay? So the first thing we have to keep in mind here, let's go back again. The location of this story, UFOs, ray guns, aliens, is connected to 8 cells, 8 town, named after a group of 8 deities. So the figure 8 is prominent. And the city of 8 was another tile. Now, we consider the emerald tablet, which was named after the emerald, and the emerald is an Octone stone. That's what an emerald is. It's an Octone stone. And this is a picture of an emerald. And it's called an Octone stone because it has 8 sides. So the stone, the emerald, has 8 sides. That's why it's called an emerald tablet. The tetrahedron, the 8 cells, the Hermopolis, the 8 town. Okay? Now the legend has it that the priest, or whatever they were, of Qum, took the emerald tablets away from Egypt. They were specifically instructed by the alien to spread out, guys. Go all over the place wherever you find these. I mean, who's going to stop them? They got ray guns and you got a spear and a club. But this is what happened, and this is very interesting when we connect it to December 21st, 2012. Joe? Some 1,300 years BC, Egypt, the ancient Chem, was in turmoil, and many delegations of priests were sent to other parts of the world. Among these were some of the pyramid priests who carried with them the emerald tablets. This particular group bearing the tablets immigrated to South America, where they found a flourishing race, the Mayas. Among these, the priests settled. In the 10th century, the Mayas had thoroughly settled the Yucatan, and the tablets were placed between the altar of one of the great temples of the sun god. Whoa, immediately I had to stop, because I said, wait a minute now. Was this Paco Votan that come up with this? It wasn't the Mayans. They weren't that advanced. But now we're finding the guys from the UFOs with the laser guns, for whatever reason, spreading out all over the world, wound up in South America, and they had these tablets. And is this where the Mayans come up with this? We've made a connection here between Thoth, who was an alien who came to Earth in a UFO with array weapons, and Paco Votan, who made the description. What's the connection? The connection is that the tablets were placed under the pyramid where Paco Votan was said to have existed. But wait a minute here. You know what this does? This opens up more. Because what was Paco Votan? Was Paco Votan part of the UFO force that had come to Earth, the Emerald Tablet in the Book of Ezekiel? Now, I want to show you a Mayan stone carving of an impression of Pakal Votan. Keep in mind, what do we got here? UFOs, aliens, right? They find their way to this place in South America, and they carve this picture of this visitor. Take a look at it. Tell me what it is. Is that a guy in a UFO? Is that a guy in a spaceship? Sure looks like it to me. Who is he? Is he part of the same force that had landed in another place? Now, if you can't find it, let me put you side by side with a picture again of Pakal Votan and his spaceship and a contemporary spaceship picture side by side. Take a look at that. Doesn't it look similar? Liftoff. Remember John Glenn? John Glenn got in when he went up with the first satellite, he got in a trainer down at NASA, and they were training. I just threw this picture in of John Glenn because I thought it was kind of, looked something like Pakal Votan, Joan. There he goes. I mean, what is it? See? Here's the point. You can't just look at that picture and say, oh, he's in a spaceship. I'm not doing that. What I'm doing is, I'm saying, according to everything written, the people that came in a spaceship migrated all over the world and came to that land where they came in contact with the Mayans. And the next thing the Mayans do is they create a carving. It looks like a guy in a spaceship. So what am I left to think? Don't you think that piece of the puzzle fits? I do. In other words, what I'm saying in as few words as possible is that it appears there is evidence to suggest that this Pakal Votan was part of the Thoth UFO force that came to Earth. Which means that the prediction about December 21st, 2012 takes on a whole new meaning. And I think there's enough here to reach that conclusion. If we do reach that conclusion, then we have to consider that prediction did not come from an ancient race, but rather from an advanced race who came from this earth to this earth from a cosmic location in UFOs. So let's follow this and see where it takes us. Joe, the fundamental reality in the Emerald Tablet is expressed in the upper left by the Octone stone, the emerald, which is 8-sided. We have this Egyptian, description of Thoth as the ibis-headed and so forth and so on, with that thing, the inkhorn at his side, and he is called the god of the 8 because of the 8 deities. Coming from in the upper right-hand corner, the remains of Hermopolis, which was called the 8 town. We have the 8 emeralds, and we have the god of 8 Thoth, and we have the 8 cells, and we have the 8 town. The ancient Egyptian Octone was the 8 qualities of creation that were kept in the temple of Hermopolis. And the god Thoth was the head of the group of 8. And he brought, according to the legends, he brought 8 into existence. Now there's something else that's interesting here. Because, this is all stuff and so forth and so on. But this I took from, I don't know where, but whatever. Just look at it and here. I am the one that transforms into 2. This was from the ancient Egyptian. I am the 2 that transforms into 4. I am the 4 that transforms into 8. After this, I am 1 again. We now recognize, and that's the bottom part, this ancient sequence as the dance of life itself. In the division of every human cell, a process known as mitosis takes place that involves a sequence of the 7 steps of transformation, resulting in an equal dividing of genetic material, and in the 8th step, the creation of a new cell. So we have 8 cells, and we have 8 steps in the creation of the cell. So there's a connection. There's a scientific connection, okay? So now let's go. Are you with me so far? Because it's a lot of stuff. But, you know, to me, who knows? I'm waiting for these tiles to lift off and the guy comes. I don't know. This is how close we're getting here. The emerald tablet of the Octone stone comes from the city of 8 via the alien from another planet in the spaceship. Thoth, portrayed as the god of 8, comes to the land of the Mayans, Paco Votan, and there is buried the emeralds under the temple of the sun, and a portrait is carved by the Mayans of this strange alien being in a spaceship. Then all of a sudden comes the Mayan calendar. And the Mayan calendar stops at December 21st, 2012. But what is interesting about it is as we look at the Mayan calendar, what do we see? We see it has 8 spokes. Start at 12 o'clock, 1, you go to 2 o'clock, you go 3, you go 4, down at the bottom 5, the 6th spoke, the 7th spoke, the 8th spoke. The Mayan calendar continues 8. And if you've ever seen a cosmonaut, that guy in the center with his 2 hands looks like he's got his hands on the controls, if I can see anything. You see that guy? Huh? Boy, we got lift off, Houston. Get me out of here. But here we have this, and it has the 8 spoke. So from the city of 8, the God, space, alien of 8, comes the Mayan calendar of 8, which ends on December the 21st, 2012. And as we move further in time, our direction changes. We begin to see predictions coming. Buddha predicts the coming of the second Buddha to occur around the year 2000. He made the prediction that it would be 2,500 years, and he made that in 1500 BC, which is now. The Buddhic symbol, as we see in the next slide, is what? It's the wheel with 8 spokes. So we have 8 again, don't we? We have the Mayan 8. We have the Buddha 8. Nostradamus turned around and he writes that there's going to be a great earth change when the constellations Ophiuchus, Sagittarius, and Scorpio align together, at which point the sun will be at the center of their formation. This occurs at December the 21st, 2012 at 11:11. And Nostradamus presents this work in his books, and as we'll see, you'll have to hit it about a few times. And notice in each quatrain, which they called his work, go ahead, Joan, there is a wheel with 8 spokes. But you get down to the bottom, when he gets to December 21st, when the constellations come together, there are no spokes. Okay? So we have Nostradamus and 8 spokes. And then let's take a look at that point on the star map to show you where Ophiuchus, you see Ophiuchus holding the serpent. Down at the lower left, you see Sagittarius with his arrow. And down at the lower right, you see Scorpio. And where I have that big X mark is the spot where the sun is supposed to center on December the 21st. Okay? Now, the History Channel, taking that information, because that is going to happen on December the 21st, they made an interesting comment by presenting a diagram on their program about December the 21st. And this is the diagram. Now take a look at it. This is how the alignment will be cosmically. And as you see, there are 8 points, and you can follow them around in red. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. This is the way it was produced by the History Channel to show us this type of geometric pattern alignment that will take place on December the 21st, 2012. So once again, we have 8. We've got the Mayan calendar of 8. We got the Buddha calendar of 8. We got Nostradamus of 8. We got this History Channel geometric pattern of 8. We got the 8 Sills. We got the 8 Tan. We got the 8 Emerald. We got Thoth with the 8. Probably the oldest sign that we studied prior to this was the symbol of the Coptic key. Jesus gave the Coptic Gnostics of Egypt the key, and he said, this key, hold on to this key because it will take you to the highest realm. And here we see in the next slide the Coptic key, which is the symbol with the 8 spokes. And if you look closely here at the front, if you could zoom maybe in on this a little bit, if you look closely here, you'll see that we have had this sign of 8 on the front of this speaker's podium for about 20 years. Long before we knew anything about that. Is this a big coincidence or something going on here? Why did we have this on here? And now it turns out that all we can talk about is that, look at also then, hold this cipher 4555 in your hand. And of course I had always made the proposal that 4555 is the galaxy from which these beings, Thoth and all these people came in UFOs. And people say, well, came up with that and so forth. Well, we did, but I think the clincher of it was the Book of Ezekiel. Now, the Book of Ezekiel, as I've told you, connects to the Emerald Tablet. The Book of Ezekiel has UFOs, it has aliens, it's got Thoth running around and all this stuff. And it tells you in the very first paragraph, at least it tells me, where these people came from. Look at it. Ezekiel 1:1. In the 4th month, in the 5th day, in the 5th day, in the 5th year, 4555. I'm not reaching for anything. That could be anything different. If that was there and there were no UFOs and no aliens, then forget it. But no, that is there, and there are UFOs and there are aliens in that very first chapter of that book. That's, to me, substantial evidence. This is Thoth. This is Hermes. This is Jesus. This is the mind that comes to Earth in UFOs. I didn't say it came to Earth in UFOs. It comes to Earth in UFOs. And when you hear about UFOs, I hope you'll think of them differently than you've ever heard before. Think of them as the cherubims of Ezekiel. Think of it as the God of Ezekiel. How do you know? Think of it as Thoth and the Emerald Tablets who came to this earth. Think of it as Pakal Votan who came to this earth. When you hear of them, think of it differently than you've ever thought of them before. And then, too, we've even found the Wheel of 8 in a NASA symbol. And here, look at this NASA symbol. And over to the extreme right, you see they use a Wheel of 8 as a symbol. NASA, let's put it up. NASA 8. And let us not forget. Let us not forget the cosmic eye that looks down on all of us, which is called in some quarters the eye of God. Let us look at it. See? That's a picture. That's not a drawing. That's not fake. That's a picture taken by Hubble. And you know what? That's the Hourglass Nebula. And what do you have when you pull away from the eye and look at the picture in total? You have an 8. And look at supernova 1987A. And what do you have? You have an 8. In supernova 1987A, I propose to you to be the 7th seal. All from the city of 8. All from the God of 8. All from the town of 8. Forces came to earth in the emerald. And the Bible, together with the emerald, brings us to December 21st, 2012, the great Octone. Now, let me show you why this is really good. It should be good enough, but there's more. The following comes from the website constellationswords.com, and it covers Hadley's Octone. John Hadley in 1730 put together an octant. An octant is some kind of a section, but it only covers 1/8 of a circle. And he used it for making visual measurements. There was another guy that we want to give him credit. He was in on it with John. His name was Thomas Godfrey. Using the instruments, celestial observations were able to be made. Now remember what we've got here. We got all of this with 8. Everything tonight has been 8, 8, 8, 8, 8, 8, 8, 8, 8. Not to mention the least of which, the Greek name Jesus has a numerical value as the mythical son of 8, 8, 8. But this is what is found as a result of John Hadley's octants. Constellations of words. The Earth rotates once a day on its axis, an imaginary line that passes through Earth from its north to south pole. The line does not stand upright. It tilts by 23 degrees, producing the ecliptic, the path the sun appears to move. If this line were standing straight, the sun's path would have the shape of a 0. But because of the orbital tilt, the invisible path of the sun is the shape of a figure 8. The sun has the shape of a figure 8 in its path, and it will come to the center of that 8 on December the 21st, 2012. The noontime position of the sun in the sky plotted over a year produces a figure 8 shape curve called analemma or whatever. So it's important, isn't it? I mean, everything that we found in this thing is bringing us to the point of the sun. And then you had NASA saying that the explosions that are coming forth between now and 2012 on the sun could have tremendous effects on us, and the greatest since it's ever been tracked. And all of this has to do with the sun. And Thoth, who came in a spaceship, said initially, we are messengers of the sun. And then you find them winding up in the land of the Mayans, and here they create a picture of a guy in a spaceship. So we have the fact that the invisible path of the sun has the shape of a figure 8. And while pondering that 8 is the symbol by all who predicted the great change to culminate and all of the different symbols we've shown you of the 8-spoked wheel. When the sun will be positioned at 11:11 on that day at the center of the 8 figure between Ophiuchus, Sagittarius, and Scorpio. From the city of 8, the aliens of 8, who came to Earth in UFOs, both in the Emerald and in the Bible, the sign of 8. And as I said, remember, Jesus' name in Greek myth is 888. So we put all this together. Let's take it all and put it together. Grab it, all these things that fit in our little puzzle, and they should start to show us a picture. We focus on the people who were called gods and cherubims and their interactions with UFOs and ray guns and all of this stuff. And you know, we connect these alien people from another place in the universe to the prediction about 2012, which leaves me with a question. What part will they play in it? In addition, we have to consider others who are portrayed as gods and their connection with people from space who rode in UFOs in the Bible. What am I referring to? Look at this. 2 Kings 2, and it came to pass, next one, John. 2 Kings 2, and it came to pass when the Lord would take up Elijah into heaven by a whirlwind. There's just 2 guys standing there next to a capsule in a spaceship. Elijah said, what do you want me to do before I'm taken away? Nothing. As they were talking, there appeared a chariot of fire, which separated them, and Elijah went up by a whirlwind into heaven. And a chariot of fire. What better way to describe a UFO launching from Earth than a chariot of fire? And Elisha said, my father, the chariot of Israel. And he saw him no more. He just turned around and said to the guy with the sheep, man, that was a lift off and a half. Did you see that? There's no doubt what's being described here. a fiery chariot that goes up in the skies, a UFO, and the people on board are part of the alien forces we've been talking about. Do you know what this means? This means that this guy called Elijah, who's such a big part of the Bible, was obviously an alien who got back into the UFO and went back up to 45, 55, or wherever to get an update, or, maybe his wife was having a baby or something, and he took off. Part of the force that Thoth had said spread out all over this earth and start to deal with these people, and that's what Elijah did. And so he stands here very matter-of-factly. Now look, you've been a nice guy. You want me to do anything before I take off here? No, I don't, all right. Take care of yourself and say hello. Take care of the kids, and I'll see you. He gets in a spaceship and blasts off in a fiery chariot until they couldn't see him up in the sky anymore. He was an alien, and he was in a UFO. Now, the point is, all of these people, whether it be the people in Ezekiel or the people in this with this UFO, it was said by Thoth in the very beginning of the Emerald Tablet that he was sending people, the force, after all the ships landed, he said to the force, now, you spread out, you take your provisions, and you just go all whatever they do. But look what he said. This was from, and I got the website at the top, crystallinks.com. We thank them for the information. Long dwelt we in the land of Chem, long and yet long again, until obeying the commands of the Master, who while sleeping yet lives eternally, I sent from me the sons of Atlantis, sent them in many directions, that from the womb of time wisdom might rise again in her children. Sent them in many directions. You see? Elijah, well, his name wasn't Elijah, but let's call him Elijah. Where are you going? We're going to take the guys. We're going to head this way. I don't know where the hell we'll wind up. He winds up, and then the force says, hey, Elijah, whatever his name was, you got to come back up here. We got some stuff going on. We need you. We need your report. Whatever, he gets in the spaceship and he takes off. Now notice something. When it says there in that slide, when he was given the word, the leader sent the guys that were with him into different directions to integrate with the earth population, to do the civilizing process. We just saw where one of those alien people returned in a UFO, and now a very interesting thing occurs. And another voice who knows the one called Elijah and who took off in a UFO returning to the alien base comments on him. When you read this, common sense has to tell you that the one called Elijah in the story returned to the base via a UFO to receive instructions or to do a little R&R, whatever he was doing, but then returned, and there was another on earth who knew him very well and talked about it, and it may surprise you. But look at the next slide in Matthew 17. Jesus comes with his disciples and they say, why do they say, the scribes say that Elijah must come first? And Jesus' answer said he had to come to restore all things. But I'll tell you this, Elijah has already come. Then the disciples understood that he was speaking of John the Baptist. John the Baptist, probably at that time the closest friend Jesus had. And Jesus had to know that this guy had left the earth in a UFO and then returned. In other words, Jesus Christ was a close personal friend of an alien who flew in a UFO. Tell me if I'm reading it wrong. Elijah has already come, and the disciples understood he was speaking of John the Baptist. So we saw a minute ago Elijah take off in a fiery chariot, which had to be a UFO, and fly up into the sky out of sight. The next thing we know, he's back on earth with a different name, playing a different part in this great myth, which means that who is Jesus then if he's a close personal friend of an alien who flew in a UFO? I would have to conclude that Jesus is also part of the Emerald Force. And obviously a leader or a commander of some kind. That would show us, wouldn't it, why the statements of Thoth from the Emerald and Jesus are so similar? Thus, Jesus being part of the Emerald is quite apparent, and I'm sure I'm going to find more stuff. Now, the complexities are raging through your head. I can hear you because of all the things that I've said in the past. Oh, wait a minute here. How could this be mythology? I mean, you said this didn't happen. If we have UFOs and alien forces roaming the earth, first of all, the names Jesus, Elijah, John, Thoth, Hermes are all constructed by those writing the stories. They didn't have names like that. The stories, which are myths, tell of ancient prehistoric times when aliens in UFOs came to Earth to civilize us on this planet. The mythology is constructed as to describe the interaction between alien forces who come and go from here in UFOs and us unsuspecting Earth people. In other words, it is not the physical parts of the story that are meaningful, but rather the power and the message brought to Earth by the extraterrestrials who are given names by the writers, which wind up in things such as the Emerald Tablet and the Bible. Hey, look, I didn't put in the Bible about fiery chariots going up into the sky and people in them. I didn't put into the Bible about UFOs landing and aliens getting out and all that kind of stuff. It's in there. See? And it connects amazingly to the Emerald Tablet. And I didn't draw a picture of Octone sitting in a spaceship. So what I'm trying to say is the Jesus story does not describe the physical reality of an event, but rather the power of an alien being whose message from the other universe to here was rejected. The various miracles and apparitions are simply allude to the existent power of the alien forces that exist among you. Now, listen real closely. Once you're able to connect the biblical stories and characters with these UFOs and aliens and forces from 4555, you will explode with knowledge. You will explode with an understanding as to what has happened, what is happening, and what will happen. Yes, the Jesus force, the Elijah force, the Emerald force, all come and go in UFOs, and when a UFO is spotted, it is connected with these forces as the civilizing efforts are still very active. So when you hear of one, think of the Emerald, think of Thoth. Think of Hermes, think of Jesus, think of Elijah, or think of the other forces, anyone you want to think. Think of the strange Martin Luther King who came as part of the Moses force, fulfilling the same myth. And you know, let me show you something. There's been many instances. When you read the scriptures, read it differently now. When some of the alien forces used weaponry from UFOs. This has occurred more numerously than you could ever imagine. Let me give you an example. Take a look at this, Joan. 2 Kings. Then the king sent him a captain of 50 men with his 50 men, and he said to Elijah, this is the alien, right, that took off in a spaceship. He said to Elijah, the king has said, come on down. Come on down from where? And Elijah said, if I'm a man of God, then let fire come down from heaven and consume you and your 50, and fire came down from heaven and consumed him and his 50. And if you don't think that can happen, take a look at some of the pictures from Iraq. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Amazing. When you read about it coming, think of it as laser fire coming from you. And begin to think of the voices of the emerald as the voice of God and the voice of Jesus. And here's where I conclude. From crystal inks, from the words of Thoth of the emerald tablet, and from the words of Jesus. Thoth said, "Now I depart from you. Know my commandments. Keep them. Be them. And I will be with you, helping and guiding you into the light." And Jesus said, "If you love me, keep my commandments. I am the light of the world, and he that follows me shall not walk in darkness, but shall have the light of life." Now you know without a doubt who he was, who they are, and you should get a much closer understanding of who you are. We'll see you. Thanks a lot. Bye-bye.